I realize this, what I'm talking about, is not in the front of people's minds, but if there was a super conference of 18 teams or more, like 20 or 24, 22 would be a weird amount. Let's just say that. It does affect conference tournaments for sports that do have that conference tournaments. I know track and field has conference tournaments, but it's not like one on one versus a team. It's more like a point system. In volleyball, for the main three, for the Power Five, they don't have conference tournaments for that, which is helpful. So they don't have to deal with that logistics nightmare. But basketball does, both men and women, men's and women's tennis, baseball, softball. That's just naming, and women's soccer as well. So it would be an. I would like to include every team in the conference tournament, but you might have no choice but to cut some teams out, just to because it's just a lot to ask to do a conference tournament with 18 teams or more. I mean, you might have to play more than 4 games in one day, which that's not ideal. I mean, it's not really ideal because you're gonna have to start games earlier, like at 9 a.m. in the morning, instead of like 11, then 1, 5, and 7, like the Big 12. And I know some conferences, at least for the Big 12's sake, they do not have all 9 teams for baseball get in NCAA tournament for the Big 12 tournament. I mean, the worst team in the league is automatically gone, so it's just 8 teams. Softball used to do that with like 2 games in one day, then the next day is just 1 game. It's not like it's more like everyone gets to play 3 games, but it's not that it wasn't like that this past year for softball. So, granted, we don't know if every team for all those 18 teams in one conference or something for a super conference will have those sports to make it to the point of 18 teams. We'll have to wait and see. At least 16 is a little bit easier to deal with, or 12 for sure, 14 for sure, 15 even with the ACC. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens, because at least they don't have to worry about the money issue if you're like in the SEC or the Big Ten, because you're going to have $100 million or more through TV contracts alone. That's going to help all the schools with those non-revenue sports. But as for the Big 12, we'll have to wait and see. Or the ACC or the Pac-12, which I think the Pac-12 is going to die. But you know what I'm saying. No, because it is probably one of those problems. It's a good problem to have too many teams, but you might have no choice but to say, sorry, you don't get to compete. Which the whole point of conference tournaments is to let one of the worst teams or the worst team have a chance to get to the NCAA tournament through winning conference tournament. And even like bubble teams that are directly on the bubble get a chance to solidify, or like in or out, barely in, barely out, have a chance to solidify and get for sure in. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing, and I'm sure if this does happen eventually in the near future of 18 teams or more in a conference, they're going to have to think about this problem, because it does need to be addressed whenever the time comes. Anyways, If you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button. I see you guys later. I was going to get to 400 subscribers and more by the end of this year.